So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this area gathering for East Norfolk and the Waveney area. This is, I think, is our third area gathering that we've had online. All have been fairly small in terms of attendance, but nonetheless, I think they've all been quite useful for the people who have been there. Here's someone else who's joining us, David. And what we normally do, if the numbers are small, is it enables us to do a quick round of introductions and also two more people. Here we go. Always happens, doesn't it? You start the meeting and everyone arrives. Here we go. Hello, David. Hello, Rachel. Welcome. We've just started, so and we're recording. Hi. Just saying, this is the third area gathering we've had, and I think what I'd like you to do is just briefly introduce yourselves and what you do and how you're involved in green care and the environment and so on, and if you've got any topics or issues that you'd like to discuss or explore today, given that we're focusing on the east of Norfolk, Great Yarmouth area, Waveney and so on. Charlotte, you appear to be top left, so could you kick off, please?
Of course. For those that have just joined the meeting, I did apologise to those earlier. I don't know why my laptop likes to put me in the dark and then the bright light, so I do apologise. It will be doing that throughout the meeting. But my name is Charlotte. I work for Redwings Horse Sanctuary. So we do have lots of sites across the UK, but many are based in Norfolk, including a few of our visitor centres. I joined the Green Care Network up with a colleague, basically just to say and to share that we are an accessible space outside in the countryside. So if there are certain groups looking to get out and about, or families that are hoping to get out and about, we are free, we are accessible, we are outside. Dogs are welcome as well, so just lots of things to show that we are local and we are accessible. I think a lot of people assume, as we are a tourist attraction, that we do cost a lot of money to enter and things like that. So just to kind of raise awareness that this is who we are, this is what we do. And obviously if anyone is struggling to look for work or looking for volunteer or want to volunteer or anything like that, just to share all the opportunities that we have, and if we have any fun games or events or anything like that going on, we're basically just here and happy to share it as well, and happy to have any ideas. We are a working farm, but we do love to take care of our local wildlife as well. So if anyone has any ideas or anything on that area, we're happy and open to listen to anything, really.
Lovely. And you've come into the bright sunlight all of a sudden as well.
I know, and the darkness again.
There we go. Fabulous. Thank you very much, Charlotte. Nick, you're next on my list, I think.
Oh yeah, hi. I'm Nick Jackson, and I work with a group with an organisation called Ecotherapy East. We're a community interest company, and we're fairly new. We're about 2 years old, about less than 2 years old. And what we do is the aim is to provide mindfulness in nature, ultimately to give people the opportunity to practice mindfulness in a natural setting. And we also run retreats, so we've got a couple of retreats coming up later this year. My colleague Rob is also coming to this meeting, and he's going to be a few minutes late, I think, so he might be able to say a bit more. We're very interested in just giving ourselves a bit of a higher profile. We're also quite interested in the issue of or the area of social prescribing. I don't know whether anybody is familiar with that concept. We've heard a lot about it, but we don't quite know how to get into it. It's kind of offered as an alternative to people receiving medical treatment, I think. So this idea of giving somebody something active to do. So that's one area that we're interested in, anyway.
Yeah, great. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, I think I met you at the Bishop's Garden last year. You came along, didn't you?
Yeah, we were at the Bishop's Garden. Yeah, we had.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we can certainly talk about social prescribing. I've got a little bit of information on that and how it's developing locally, which might be of interest to you and others here. So we can certainly pick it up in a minute. Great, thank you. Jane, over to you.
Hi, I work for Groundwork East, so we cover whole of the East, but we're working on a project. My area is Essex, Suffolk and Norfolk, and we're just starting on a project in Great Yarmouth. So I believe it's being led by East Suffolk Council and the Environment Agency, and it's called Resilient Coast. So I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but it's basically preparing the communities for changes that are going to come around flooding, climate change, that kind of thing. And as Groundwork, we do community engagement. So we'll be out talking to people, finding out how much they already know about the topic. I don't have all of the details yet, it's very early stages, so I can't give you much information at the moment, but how much people already know about the risk of flooding, the resilience available, what help they might think they need, what's already available, that kind of thing. And then over time we will be building up those resources to share with local people. So it's actually quite a long project. It's till 2027. And there are other projects going on along the coast, but we're only working in the Yarmouth area at the moment. So I thought to come along. I was actually sent the information by one of my colleagues to just connect with people and see if we can help each other as the project goes on.
Excellent. A very topical topic, isn't it, that one? With all the recent collapses of cliffs and so on along Hemsby and whatever.
Yeah.
Are you going to be doing any sort of what you might call practical work with communities in terms of sort of flood prevention and things like that, or is it very much about how to cope with the change that's going to come?
I mean, possibly we'll get involved in that, but I think that'll probably be more of an environment agency type scheme. But as we'll be working together, it might be that we just bring the general public to those kinds of activities and help the Environment Agency get people involved.
Right. Good. Thank you. Dave, over to you.
Hello, yes, I'm Dave. I work for the Ringsfield Hall Trust and I operate Ringsfield Hall Woodland Activity and Retreat Centre. Here we host school residentials for children. We offer spaces for special educational needs schools to come to, and well, all schools basically, but we have focused a lot this year on special educational needs schools and also offering alternative provisions. And the sole focus is to get children, young people, and also the inner child in all of us to witness the health benefits of being in nature, the mindfulness aspects that Nick was just talking about, but also do some education into why looking after the natural world's important and how it benefits us. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Ringsfield Hall's 15-acre site, mixture of woodland, meadow, and we do have some farm animals on site as well. And yeah, that's kind of it. It's nice to be able to network. I often find myself too busy to come along to things. So it's nice to put my head above the parapet and say hello, and apologies for not being as engaged as I would like to be.
Great. No, good to see you, Dave. I know we've met once or twice in the past, but yeah, I appreciate you're a busy guy. Yeah. Good. And Rachel, last but not least.
Oh, so trying to get my camera to work. There we go. Hi, I'm here. I was a previous member of Green Care Network when I worked on an outdoor project, but I don't really have much to do with the outdoors, but I'm wondering if we can do something creative together. So I work for an initiative called Multiply, which is about demystifying maths and making it far more accessible for anybody over 19 who doesn't have a formal maths qualification. But the luxury that we have is that we can be very creative in how we approach that, and we can work with quite small groups. So I just wanted to come along today because I'm based in Great Yarmouth and that's my area, to see if anyone might think of any partnering opportunities, any ideas that we could partner up with. We've got local providers, East Coast College, ACE and other providers, but we can work in partnership with you to kind of create a course or something that might interest the client group that you already work with, or you might want to host something and we work in partnerships. I'm just here to be nosy really today, so I'll stay in the background, but if anyone's got any ideas, I'd love to hear from you.
That's
My
great.
previous job was about getting out into the outdoors for carers of people with dementia, and we just saw the massive impact that it had on people and their well-being. So if we could get some well-being with numbers, that would be really lovely. So yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you again. I think we last met at Crescent Hall when you were the last days of the dementia project. Yeah, very
days remembered.
Yeah. Good. Well, that's really interesting. Any responses, I suppose, to anything that anyone's heard? First of all, any things or hooks that you pick up on that you might want to pursue? And we're a small group, so literally just put your hand up if you want to speak. That's the easiest thing. Oh, you've changed your background, Dave. Jane, over. Was that a hand, Jane?
Yeah.
Go on then.
Just to talk about social subscribing, not particularly my team, but other teams in Groundwork East do a bit of that. So they got something called GOGA, which stands for Go Out, Get Active. And they basically, sometimes they do walks, sometimes they do actual activities like clearing gardens, improving open spaces, and they do a bit of health attached. So they'll wear a pedometer, or they'll test heart rates and things before and after. And they do work with health centres, places like that, to get referrals. They've also had some growing schemes, teaching people about growing their own food, which they've also advertised with community health centres. So we do have some information internally about that. So if you did want anything, I could find out.
Great, thank you very much. Anything you want to come back on, Nick, with that?
Well, no, I mean that sounds very, very interesting. I think that's the kind of information that we need about how to kind of get started, how to get into it. I mean that we don't really know what we could offer at the moment, but yeah, any information will be gratefully received.
Yeah. If I could just make a suggestion, I mean, I think picking up on what you just said, Nick, I think one of the best ways of starting to get involved is to talk to your local primary care centre where your GPs are, and they will have, I think it's fairly correct to say generally these days, they will have someone called a social prescribing link worker or something similar to that. They're called different things in different parts of the county. And it's their role to actually interview, work with patients that are referred to them to do precisely what you said, which is basically about finding ways of helping them cope, dealing with their health issues that are not medically related. And that could be a whole host of things. A lot of the things that we're talking about in relation to the environment and green care, it fits with that beautifully. But there's a whole host of other activities that are potentially available to them largely through voluntary and charitable groups like your own and so on. So that would be my first suggestion in terms of, getting contact at a local level, and then you can have that discussion with them about what you potentially can offer, and they can think about, well, yeah, that might work for patient X or patient Y. It's the sort of thing that maybe would help them.
Yeah, that's a brilliant suggestion. Thank you, Nigel. Yeah.
On a bigger scale, I mean, I won't steal the whole show, but I've been involved in some discussions with a woman called Claire Dyke, who some of you may know. She's the lead for social prescribing in the Norfolk and Waveney integrated care system, as it's now called, basically the NHS in its new form. And she's come in and is starting to do some great work to try and develop really social prescribing, including what you might call green social prescribing, the sort of thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm involved in a working group that I think is meeting for the first time in a couple of weeks, which is looking specifically at something called nature prescriptions. This is a project that the RSPB have developed, Royal Society for Protection of Birds, initially in Scotland. I think it was in the Shetland Isles, and then latterly in Derbyshire. And basically it's about providing a sort of a calendar of things to look for in nature, different months of the year, related to your area, if that's possible. And the idea is that the social prescribing link worker, who I've mentioned, would talk through that as an option for patient X or patient Y, and they would be given this with support as a way of connecting with nature to aid them in terms of their mental health issues or whatever it might be. And there was quite a lot of enthusiasm for that project locally with social prescribing link workers. And this working group is as a result of that. So it's really looking at whether we can set something up like that locally across Norfolk and Waveney. So that's great. The other thing, which again, I think is a really big opportunity this year on green social prescribing, there are 7 national what are called test and learn sites that were set up, I think it was 2 years ago, with government funding. None in this region, unfortunately, but most of them seem to be in the Midlands and the North. There's one down, I think, in the southwest and one just outside London. That they've been basically developing green social prescribing in order to address mental health issues, particularly. Rachel, you've entered the waiting room again. That's interesting. We've now got 2 Rachel Hortons. Never mind. Yeah, so those test and learn sites have now finished, and they're in the process now of putting together an evaluation report, which I think is due to be published in the next few months. So we've been in touch with the national NHS lead on green social prescribing, and she's been very supportive. My hope is that through the network, we can learn the lessons, if you like, from those test and learn sites and use that with Claire's help to really develop green social prescribing locally. Some of the issues with this you'll be very familiar with. Funding is a key issue. You know, how do you fund organisations like yours to provide the sort of things that are needed on a sort of a continuous rather than a sort of project basis? That's one of the issues. I think there's a lack of information as well about what's already out there and happening. I mean, a bit like you've said, Nick, that you're just starting out perhaps, and, you know, does the health service know you exist? That's one of the things we've got to try and, I think, one of the things deal with as well. And there are a whole host of other issues. I mean, you know, one of the key things is obviously being able to demonstrate how effective you are. So developing the capacity in projects to, I suppose, assess their own impact is an important point for development, and something, again, which we're trying to work with the local NHS and nationally to try and develop that. So I think there's a real big opportunity this year, green social prescribing, and you know, we'll obviously broadcast through the network any opportunities or developments that come through those discussions. Good. Anyone want to come in on social prescribing any further? Anything else on that? I suppose the other thing, just to say very quickly, the other angle on that is we've been working with the NHS locally on their green plans, as they're called, where they've got plans that are trying to reduce carbon emissions principally. But we've managed to include in those green plans a commitment to using green spaces on NHS sites, such as hospitals, primary care hubs, ambulance stations, etc., using those either to improve biodiversity, which is obviously a key issue for us nationally, or to promote health and well-being. You know, there are many hospitals already that have community gardens, for example. They grow their own food there. They involve staff, they involve patients, they involve carers and perhaps the wider community. So I think there's some really good examples there that we can highlight and try and persuade other sites to develop those opportunities as well. That's just another strand that, again, could link in with green social prescribing, you know, opportunities to point people in the direction of those sorts of projects, really.
I think there's some research going on at the moment, I can't remember where, to look at what types of gardens help people in terms of mindfulness. So they're kind of dividing it up into different spaces and having ones that are predominantly about smell, others about texture and colour, and just seeing what helps people, whether it's a particular type of illness it helps, or whether it just helps different people. So that would be quite interesting and maybe help shape some of these spaces as well.
Yeah, yeah. And just thinking about redwings, Charlotte, I mean, you know, interaction with animals is a key area in which, you know, this sort of benefit can come, isn't it? And I know you perhaps you want to say a little bit more about what you do on that front specifically. Are you involved in social prescribing at all, redwings, or not?
To be honest, I guess it is kind of a new concept for us as well. We do have some various groups that say, you know, we want to encourage, you know, our kids or our adults, whoever they are, to get out and about. They don't get out in nature much. They want them to experience nature. At the moment, it is kind of people just finding us and finding my email and just getting in contact with us, which is absolutely fine to anyone here. I can put it in the chat. That's not a problem at all. But our site is very much kind of come as you go for as long or as little as you like. We kind of let you be in control. We want our horses, ponies and donkeys to also live as naturally as possible. So we can't always guarantee they'll come to the fence and see you, but a lot of them do like to come and have a little tickle. Sometimes you'll see just visitors just like talking to the horses just themselves, and you know, so it is really, really lovely to see, and that people do see the benefits of getting outside. And you know, like I said, we're not just a farm. We do try and think about our sites as well. So certainly our Norfolk ones, our Caldecott near Great Yarmouth has got a memory garden, which is also a lot of that's been left to for wildflowers as well. So that's a little area that people can just be nice and peaceful and sit and relax if they want to. Our Aylsham site in North Norfolk has got 2 wildlife ponds, which again we just kind of leave and let be natural as well. So again, there's also areas for a bit of peace and quiet, because of course with families and kids and our horses and all sorts making noise, it can be a bit overwhelming for some people. So we do have some quiet areas as well. And like I said, because we're usually open over the weekends, people can just come and go as they please. Some people can find it overwhelming to have things planned for them. So they can just come and go as they please, or if they want to get in touch with us, and we can try and make it a bit more of a personal visit, so we can make sure a horse definitely comes to see you and comes to the fence, or you want to do some fun activities, you want to do some wildlife spotting, various things. We try and cater to groups as best we can, so we're very open and say, you tell us what you want and we'll see what we can do.
Excellent. I mean, you mentioned sort of what I'd called sensory gardens there, which are all about, you know, as you both said, really, you know, smell, touch, even eat, really, you know, taste, sort of what fruits can you pick, etc. And those are really, I think, powerful places. And again, I mentioned hospitals, you know, some long stay hospitals and others have those, don't they? And I think they're actively sort of talking about providing more. Yeah, interesting stuff. The other thing you touched on there is, I suppose, that whole notion of different ways of connecting with nature. And I don't know whether anyone here is familiar with the University of Derby work, but they've done some fantastic stuff that talks about, I think it's the 5 ways of connecting with nature. You know, if you Google that, you'll find there's a lovely diagram that talks about you know, sort of the awe that you can sometimes feel when you're out in nature. One that always comes to mind with me is a sort of a murmuration of starlings. If ever you see that in the sky, I think, wow, that's absolutely incredible. And there's obviously the sort of the learning about nature and understanding it as well. And the other sort of senses and ways of connecting, which is really, really helpful, I think. Worth a look if you want to. I'm interested in what you were saying, Rachel, about your project, maths, and I suppose it's an interesting angle. You know, is there anyone here who can think of a way that can help you in terms of what you're trying to achieve through using nature and green space? I mean, Dave, particularly, I just wonder whether that's something that Ringsfield Hall is already involved with in some way, is it?
What, in terms of like different curricular applications of outdoor learning and things?
Yes,
like that?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a lot of our activities, you know, we will do like measurements of trees to guess their age, and then you can link that into history, and you can talk about what that tree has seen during its life, and you know, it's basically making those subjects come to life.
Yeah.
You know, so there's so many ways of inventively embedding different subjects into outdoor learning. You know, I could go on and on and on about it.
And we tend to still distinguish between arts and sciences, don't we? But a lot of the most creative ways are about using the arts in a creative way to bring science to life. Perhaps is the sort of the thing that you're referring to, yeah?
Yeah, well, there are so many young people now who are disengaged with the education system. And it's not that they're disengaged with education or wanting to learn, it's they're disengaged with the structure. The structure of having to sit down and stuff, because society's changed. What impact young people's changed. The way they spend their time has changed. But also, there's a lot more anxiety out there. There's a lot more ADHD tendencies coming out, and various food intolerances and all sorts of things which are having these impacts.
Do you work with children over 19?
We do. We work with all ages. Okay. The charity is for children. But there's a child inside all of us.
Certainly is. Maybe we can speak outside of the meeting.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Contact details, Dave, and
yeah.
I'd also like to just big up Red Wings, because we did some lovely work with them over at the Aylsham site with our carers of people with dementia through Nicola. And we had it's so accessible, the site. I know you've said it, Charlotte, but it really was. It was a lovely day, and the farrier happened to be on the same day, so we got that as well. But they were really open to working with us and giving the carers an experience. And they've got a lovely cafe at the Aylsham one as well. So if anyone's thinking of hosting an event, it's a lovely site. And I know you're quite keen to do. I mean, we could even come back and do something. I'm sure we can measure out horse feed and measure horses' feet. Or do something together.
I must say, I'm guilty that I shop in Aylsham every Saturday, but I've never been to Red Wings. So now you say there's a wonderful cafe, I think I should pop in there on Saturday morning.
Right, you should have a look.
Yeah, brilliant.
In terms of maths, I did think as well about counting birds. So we've been working on a project with the Kittiwake Partnership in Lowestoft, and so we talk about bird counting. So I just wondered, because obviously they are always looking for ways of getting people involved, and younger people. So I mean, that could be any age group, because I think most of them are generally retirement age, so they're just looking for anybody that's younger than that, just to keep it all going. And I think, yeah, obviously it's kind of give you some it will give you ideas about estimating numbers, and because they'll count a square and then estimate how many squares there are if it's a large flock, and kind of work it out rather than trying to count every individual. So I don't know if there's an opportunity there for some kind of maths project.
Yeah, if I'm sure Nigel, you'll send people's details, won't you? So I can change.
I was going to say, yeah, what we've done in the past, if you're happy with this, is to share your emails on a follow-up email that I'll send with the link to the recording today, if that's all right. Thumbs up if you're happy for me to do that. Yeah, great. Okay, fine. And if anyone else joins us later, I'll check with them. But that, I think, has been one of the most useful things of this sort of meeting, that people have made those initial connections and then followed it up afterwards and so on. Yeah, very good. One of the things I suppose I ought to mention, and it's a bit of a plug, I'm shamefully saying, is we have an event near where I live on Saturday called Earth Day Fair. If you're on the network, you may have seen me post about it. But I mention it because we're going to be launching our campaign called First Nature in the morning of Saturday, 11 o'clock onwards. First Nature is a campaign to expand nature connection opportunities for children and youngsters across Norfolk. And over the last, 8 or so months, we've been in a group, multi-agency group, developing what that campaign might do. And we're getting to the point on Saturday where we think, well, let's step forward now and say, look, we're here, folks. This is what we're aiming to do. Come and join us, share what you're already doing. Can we do more of this in areas, particularly where there's poor access to nature, for example, or, people don't manage to get out and visit a farm, which is another way of, connecting and so on.
Is that the Russia linked program, Nigel, or was that something else that I saw? Sorry,
I missed that, what you said, Dave.
Was that the Russia linked thing, or was that something else that I saw on the network?
I don't think it's linked to them. No, this is something we've developed through the network, really.
Right.
In fact, I was going to ask you, Dave, I can't remember whether you're on our contact list, but we did send round a pro forma to try and gather information on existing opportunities. And I can't honestly remember whether you've done one or not, but can you?
No, I can't. No, it's
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we should, because what we're trying to do, we're setting up a website, and we're going to map on there what's already out there. And obviously what you're doing is a very important element of that. So you should be in there. But equally, if you want to get involved in, you know, the work to promote this, expand it, and find new ways of enabling children and youngsters to connect, that would be really good, because it touches on what you said. You know, it's so important. Thanks, Rachel. You've got to go. Nice to see you. I'll circulate information around after the meeting.
One of the issues that I often come across, being in the Waveney Valley, so you know, sometimes we're parts of North, sometimes we feel like we're part of Norfolk, sometimes we feel like we're part of Suffolk.
Sure.
And you never quite know, you know, what, you know, you're doing a funding thing, or who do I go to, or you're doing something with the NHS, who's my primary care trust, or, you know, you kind of like, you kind of stuck between two things. And, you know, and recently we did a Easter holiday club program, the holiday activity fund stuff. And then we had people coming from Norfolk for that, and it was like, oh, it's Suffolk funded, can they come, and all this. So it's quite tricky being in the borderlands, and I don't know if anyone else is in a similar position.
I've often heard that, I have to say. Yeah. Anyone else want to come in on that?
Funny you say that. Obviously, we have a few sites across the UK, and probably our one near Caldecott is pretty much near Great Yarmouth. It's pretty much on the border as well. So I completely understand. But funny that you say this. Obviously, when I saw Nigel's original email with lots of different meetings, I thought, how many of these do I count as? You know, because again, we are quite close to the border. A lot of our sites are also Norfolk or North Norfolk, so they're guaranteed. But we have got some elsewhere, you know, kind of Norfolk, Suffolk border, Essex. So yeah, I completely understand as well.
Oh, I see Rob is in the waiting room, so I'll let Rob in. Looks like Rachel's still with us, or maybe she's still got something switched on. Just wait for Rob to join us and welcome him.
Oh yeah, sorry I'm
Hello.
late.
That's all right. Hello, how are you?
I'm all right.
Good. We've been going, we've done our introductions. I did say that you were expected to be a little bit late, and Nick has said you were joining us as well. We're just running through sort of topics, I suppose, or issues that people have raised, including things like social prescribing, making provision for children who are being encouraged to learn maths, and whether we can use nature to assist with that, and other things. Is there any particular topic you wanted to explore today, Rob, or are you going to go with the flow, as they say?
I think I feel like going with the flow. I don't have anything in particular that's on the top of my mind. I want to just get to know people and hear what people are up to. And,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've got people here. I won't ask everyone to introduce themselves, but Charlotte is from Red Wings or Sanctuary. Jane is from Groundwork East, doing a project in Great Yarmouth. Dave is from Ringfield Hall, which is, well, how would you describe where you are in the between area, Rob?
It sits directly between Beccles and Bungay. Yeah.
And a sort of, how would you describe yourself? An educational, nature-based outdoor
educational residential centre, which is starting to work more on alternative provision and harder to reach young people and adults as well. Yeah.
Great. And you know Nick, so there we are.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
And perhaps you can say a little bit more about Ecotherapy East and where you're at and how you're developing, and any things that I suppose are opportunities for those present, maybe.
Yeah. I guess a lot of our work, well, it's evolving. There's sort of two main threads to what we do. We have 12 acres of land near Bramfield in Suffolk, and we're sort of regenerating that by planting trees and wildflowers, creating habitat for wildlife, which is one side of the way we talk about ecotherapy. That's the bit where we give back to nature, and the other side of it for us is experiencing nature connection time, sort of facilitating time to more deeply connect with nature sort of nature immersion time, to find out more about our own inner world, find out about ourselves more, resource ourselves, deepen our, I guess our knowledge of our internal as well as external world.
Yeah.
Sort of to put it simply and shortly.
Yeah. No, very helpful.
And we, if anyone has a spare weekend this weekend, we're running a whole weekend residential camping. People can come for the as a day visitor too, but I think most people are going to be camping. So yeah, if you feel bold.
I would be with you, but we have our own Earth Day event going on Saturday, so
fantastic.
Conflict. There we go. Jane, would you like to say a bit more about your project, which was interesting, which was the resilient coastline and working with local communities about, well, I suppose the flooding to come, or the loss of land to come?
Yeah, it's still very early days, as I mentioned, so I haven't got the full details, but yeah, we're working with other partners. It's being managed by East Suffolk Council and the Environment Agency, and it's working with communities that are at risk of flooding, coastal erosion, that kind of thing. So we're going to start off by doing a survey with with what's it called? London School of Economics. I only ever think of the initials. And they deliver this Zurich survey across the world, basically. So it's one that they repeat that's the same questions for all the communities, and they try and get like a baseline of information about how resilient the community is to what's coming, and then we will work from that to decide what the communities need, what kind of support. So groundwork will be coming from a community engagement system. So we'll basically work with the others to get all that information together, and then to share that with the community and come up with solutions. They want to put together some kind of toolkit over the project that can be rolled out to other communities that are in a similar situation. Right. So yeah, it's very much still evolving, so it's quite a bit it's quite a bit vague at the moment, but yeah, I can definitely keep you informed.
Yeah, very interesting. Anyone any comments or questions? Other things you'd like to talk about? Yeah, Dave.
I've just been reminded that we work with the Ernest Cook Trust. We're part of what's called the OWL collaboration, which is the Outdoor Week of Learning collaboration, where they fund us to provide 4-night residentials for children within East Anglia to come away and witness nature, have a nature connection week, basically. And these are children from schools where it's high school meals, areas of deprivation, things like that. But in my last meeting with the lady who coordinates it all from their end, she said that they're starting something in coastal communities, specifically Lowestoft and Great Yarmouth, which is akin to their Green Influencers scheme, which is going to be called Blue Influencers, which is about connecting young people in those communities with the coastal environment. Right. I don't know anything else about it as of now, but it's something that is going to be, keep your eyes out for it, because it's going to be very important for connecting young people with nature in those deprived coastal communities.
Well, that's the sort of initiative we'd be very pleased to find out more about in terms of our First Nature campaign, because you're not only to map what's there and to make people aware of it, etc., but also maybe to learn some lessons that can be used elsewhere, which is great. I'm familiar with the Green Influences project that ran in Norfolk for a while. The other one which we've been exploring is called Backyard Nature. And if you come across that, it's a national scheme run by a consortium of housing associations together with the charitable arm of Clarion Housing Association, which I think is the biggest in the country. And they've basically funded groups of youngsters, I guess teenagers mainly, to carry out environmental projects in their areas. And that might be about improving biodiversity, planting trees, hedges, whatever it might be. And we're looking at the possibility of developing a sort of a Norfolk version of that. We've got Flagship Housing Group, you may have heard of, and Clarion on board with us. And we're gradually spreading the net to other housing providers in order to get them involved as well. It can often involve, I mean, you might say why housing associations, but invariably with social housing, you tend to find that there are lots of green spaces that are closely mown, and not much else is done with them. So it's really an idea of trying to look at those green spaces in a different way. Can we let the grass grow? Can we put a pond in? You know, ways in which we can use those spaces to improve biodiversity, or maybe growing food, you know, a communal allotment or something like that. So that's where housing associations are coming in, and that's one element of, if you like, the First Nature programme that we're looking at.
Yeah, if there's a problem with flooding as well, because that's on
Absolutely.
my mind, then
Yeah.
there can be areas to help alleviate surface water flooding, can't they?
Yeah,
Because
developing
rain gardens
swales or whatever they're called, you know, those
yeah.
sorts of approaches. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing we'll do, I'll say a bit more about First Nature if you like, but I mean, a few other things that we're doing. I've talked about a website which is in the process of being pulled together. We've got the support, which I'm very pleased to say we have, from the Bishop of Norwich, who you may know is the environmental lead for the Church of England and a very keen environmentalist. He's an ecologist by training. He is putting some money into an annual award for the First Nature project, which is going to be £1,000 to a project or an organisation that is doing great work to expand nature connection opportunities for children and youngsters. It's probably going to reward those that have already started, but hopefully, you know, help them with encouragement and a little bit of money to develop a bit further, sort of thing. So that's something else we'll be launching on Saturday at this Earth Day event. And the other thing which I think has become increasingly important is to take a coordinated approach to working with schools. I'm really pleased that we've got not only the outdoor education lead for Norfolk, but we've also got Norfolk Wildlife Trust and a whole host of other organisations like the RSPB involved in talking about initiatives that they've all been talking about doing individually, but bringing them together so as not to overwhelm schools and to recognise that schools, as some of you will no doubt know, are really under all sorts of pressures, financially, workload and everything else. So that's a really, I think, positive development. There's a national scheme, I think, called Wilder Schools, which the Wildlife Trusts are talking about rolling out locally, which is about getting schools to think about their grounds much more creatively in terms of improving biodiversity and so on. So that's something I think we'll continue to develop. So, you know, our hopes are that we can really make a difference here, I think, particularly as we all know that, as you've said, Dave, children and youngsters have really, I think, suffered from the pandemic and the fallout from that, the lack of contact with their peers, lots more screen time and all those sorts of things that, you know, we hope nature can help address, really. Anything else, folks? I'll be running out of steam. We inevitably do at some point, but is there anything else anyone wants to pick up or develop? Yeah, Charlotte.
So I was just going to say, obviously, I've mentioned that, you know, people can come to us, but we know that's not always easy. So sometimes if people have inquiries for us to come to you, we can't bring our ponies to you. Sadly, that's a lot of work, and they are rescue animals, so we can't always guarantee that's a good idea. But sometimes we can bring like some games, you know, some colouring, or just something if you've got an event or anything like, say, like Nigel, like I said, I've sent you the magazines and some colouring for the event because we sadly can't make it on Saturday, but just things like that. So if anyone wants anything like that or wants us to provide a talk or something, we do accept external things as well, because again, like you said, you know, as I'm sure Dave and some of you others are you know, realizing some schools, they don't have the money, they don't have the buses to come to these places and things like that. So if you'd like us to try and get to you, we can't always guarantee it, haven't always got the staff all the time, but again, any inquiries, please do just send them through, basically.
Yeah, you touched on another issue that's come up in our discussions about First Nature, which is about that financial issue for schools in actually funding coaches to make visits to farms or other sites and so on. And I've made contact with a farmer near to me, a guy called Jeremy Buxton, who runs a farm called Eves Hill, very much into what you might call regenerative farming in that way, but has also hosted visits that have been organised by the Country Trust, which some of you may know, sort of organisation that arranges farm visits. And he was saying that he'd like to perhaps use the campaign to generate money as a fund to actually help schools get out and about a bit more, you know, because the financial penalty is there, obviously. So that's something else that's under discussion, I think, and see where that goes.
Interesting you raise the Country Trust. We host about 7 or 8 residential visits for them a year, and
Right.
they're often looking for different sites to go and visit and access. I think currently when they stay, they have been going to Minsmere, they go down Walberswick and stuff. I'm not sure if there's somewhere in Norfolk that they also use as a place to stay as well. But if you're keen to extend into offering stuff to Country Trust schools, I can put you in touch with schools that come here and the person who organises that, and see if we can add value to their programmes. So.
Yeah. Well, as I say, Dave, it would be great if you could give us some more information on what you're already doing, and we can put that on the website. And as I say, we can use that as a sort of a launch pad in a way to perhaps discuss and develop other things, sort of thing. I'll send you a pro forma. That's the easiest thing.
Right here, yeah.
We'll see how we get on with that. Yeah.
I was just wondering then also what sort of things they look to do, like if they're visiting somewhere, what are they looking for in that experience?
Yeah, I mean, Dave will probably know better than I do, but certainly Jeremy, I mentioned, his farm visit was quite wide ranging, I think, and he had some fantastic feedback. It was almost about, at a very basic level, understanding where your food comes from. You know, where do the peas come from? Tesco's. Well, okay, maybe initially, but where ultimately do they come from? You know, those sorts of levels of understanding. But it got deeper than that. I mean, he got some fantastic feedback about the way he was running the farm, and that he was running it in a regenerative way, i.e. with thinking about nature and working with nature rather than against it. And I think, you know, we've touched on interaction with animals. Actually, if you've got animals on the site, being able to interact with them is a very powerful therapeutic method, I think, as well.
Yeah. Interesting. What have they done with you, Dave? What do they?
When they come here, there is a local green growing cooperative called Berry Farm or Green Grow, and where we are a walk from them. So it's a nice countryside walk for them to go and visit the farm, see what's going on with their cattle, see what's growing in their polytunnels, try some different foods. And then when they're here, they do bushcraft activities, forest school activities, some wide games, and we do campfire evenings and a bit of orienteering with them. And they visit various other sites as part of that programme. And predominantly the schools that come here from the Country Trust are London based. So, you know, these are your children that are in tower blocks and they don't really get green space whatsoever. Their playgrounds are cages basically, because they're worried about either them getting out or people throwing stuff in and all sorts of stuff. So it's quite, you know, compared to the East Anglia, it's a completely different world.
Yeah,
absolute concrete jungle.
Yeah. And yeah, a point I often make when we talk about urban lack of access, if you like, to green space and nature, is that, you know, I live in an area which is in the country. It's a lovely area, don't get me wrong, but accessing it is quite limited. You're forced to walk along narrow country lanes, which are often either groups of cyclists pedaling along fast or cars that are driving along fast or whatever. And there are relatively few public footpaths that enable you to access what you might call meaningful countryside, you know, rather than just seeing field after field. So, I mean, it's quite interesting. I think the Natural England, you probably know, they've recently published what they call a green infrastructure framework. And whilst that's been primarily about ways in which we can improve green space in urban areas, I think they are onto this issue of improving access in the countryside as well, which is an interesting angle on it, I think.
Does that involve things like the Quiet Lanes network and stuff like that, Nigel?
Can do, yeah. I mean, it's certainly a factor, isn't it? It's a way of, if you like, slowing things down so that you can actually connect with things without worrying whether you're going to be run over or whatever.
Because interestingly enough, around us here, they have made a lot of the quiet lane network, but there has just been a big planning application in for a massive solar farm development, which is going to pretty much surround us here. And I was all for it, you know, environmental, solar farm, etc. But then when you delve into these things, you think, okay, they're going to be building this for 2 years. They're changing everything into a one-way system. There's going to be a lorry every 10 minutes going past. And then when it's in, there's inverters going off. And then it's productive land and not brownfield site and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm in one of these dilemmas of, oh, here's a bit of kind of greenwashing going on.
Yeah.
And how do we make the general population, you know, the average Joe, aware of what greenwashing looks like, and to be kind of like, oh, actually, no, this is a big company that's trying to make themselves look good, but actually they're taking a lot away from what's there.
We have a similar issue with the offshore wind farms and their on land pipelines and so on. I mean, near us, it's just about to kick off one that's going to cause a lot of disruption, I think, to local roads, and also digging up a lot of the countryside in order to, you know, pipe their electricity down to London and beyond. So yeah, I'm totally with you on that. And yeah, solar farms, I mean, they can be enormous, can't they? And they're almost the new form of what's the phrase, neutral agriculture or industrial agriculture. It's sort of industrial power, isn't it, in a different way?
They can be okay for biodiversity because they don't manage the land. They obviously have to keep the grass fairly short, but not as short as like a park or something.
Yeah.
So it's not. It could be worse.
A lot worse. No, that's a good point as well. Yeah. Okay, well, I see we're coming up to 5 o'clock. Unless there's anything else that anyone wants to pick up on, hope you found that useful. As I've said, this is a relatively small group, and I have to say the area gatherings we've had so far have been fairly small. But in some ways that's good, because I think it means you can have sort of a depth of conversation that perhaps you wouldn't have if you had a large number of people. And as again we said earlier, it makes the possibility of you perhaps connecting afterwards a possibility if that's relevant to you. What I did say earlier, Rob, was if you're happy with this, I will circulate an email to everyone so that you can each see each other's email and make connections afterwards if you wish.
Yeah.
Send round the link to the recording of this as well, which will go on our YouTube channel along with the others that we've done. And I suppose the other question is to say, do you think this is worth doing again in the future? And I'm perfectly open to you saying no, don't feel embarrassed, that's fine. Is there any value in doing this perhaps every 2 or 3 months, or what do you think? Nick's thumb up.
I suppose there could be. It could be more people hear about this. Obviously, we've all had a chat. We could speak to other local organisations near us, or friends or family who may know. So there may be a few other people in a few months' times, or it might be we've all chatted behind closed doors and it's an update for everybody. So I'm personally fine with it. But.
Yeah, I have to say the other gatherings we've had have said, yeah, let's do it again, because they've found it useful, I think. But that's not to say, you know, you need to do exactly the same. Rob, sorry, Dave, you can say something.
I was just going to say, you know, it'd be handy for me if we could say like some kind of email communication beforehand where we kind of put together some questions that we'd like to raise, and then people can go in and say, oh, I can help with that, I can talk through that, etc. etc.
Nice idea, thank you. Yeah, that's very good. Okay, if we said I mean, how soon again would you want to meet? 2 months, 3 months? What do you think?
3 months.
Yeah, I think quarterly would be good.
Okay, yeah, we can vary it if you want, sort of thing. Yeah, okay, fine. Well, what I'll do a follow-up email, as I say. I like that suggestion, Dave, which is a good one, and I might share that with you know, the other groups, and we'll get some upfront topics, if you like, which might again attract people, and we could perhaps put those topics on the Eventbrite site where you register, so you can see, you know, what people are putting forward. That's a nice idea. And I'll suggest a date in about 3 months' time. Where are we? Mid-April, sort of May, June, July. So it'll be probably mid-July, if that's okay. And see how we get on in the meantime. Yeah. Okay. Oh, lovely.
That sounds good.
Thanks
for organising it.
Pleasure. Thank you. Nice to
Yeah.
meet you all and to explore things a bit further. Enjoy the rest of your evening and be in touch.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Nigel.
Bye now.
Bye.
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 Good to meet you all. Yeah.